What is up? The NBA playoffs started this week, and I got some good news. And the combination of those things led me to think, hey, what if I made some sports analogies for cancer? Because, they always say sports teaches you about life, especially when you get recurrent cancer a bunch of times and you don't really like the fighting verbiage that people use around it. So you might know basketball pretty well. And let's cheapen things by likening cancer to a playoff series or a sports game, right? Right? Let's go. No need to bury the lead. The good news is that I got my third quarter or 9-month PET scan results back, and they were clean. Woo! I'm cancer-free. I'm NED heading into the fourth quarter of this cancer treatment. You can see where this is headed. Anyway, I do want to do some post-game wrap-up comments. I want to shout out both the radiology team and the oncology team that I work with because I did my PET scan at noon on Friday, and I got the results of my PET scan at 6 p.m. on Friday, which is pretty incredible. That's the fastest turnaround I've ever had in some 30-odd PET scans that I've done over the last 7 years. So that's pretty dope. It helps to have a provider team that helps you out about that, all that good stuff. I do have one petty grievance. On the report for my PET scan that was levied by the radiologist to the oncologist and then back to me, the top thing says findings, metastatic melanoma, stage 4, which is like, come on, man, don't get me worked up like that. I've never seen it just listed my disease right at the top to scare me. But then I scrolled down and I was fine. I digress. So what's the significance of 9 months NED, 9 months into cancer treatment, one more quarter of treatment to go with a great scan result? Well, obviously, the biggest significance is that I remain cancer-free. That's the whole goal. That's the entire game. So right now, you could say I am winning whatever game that me and my cells are playing versus each other. Again, these analogies get tricky because cancer is not governed by any broader set of rules. There are so many subsets of cancer. Everyone's case is unique, and you are just playing cancer ball with no idea of what the actual rules are. In fact, one of the biggest ways that I've had success over the last 7 years and 3 cancer treatments is by making some rules that I can adhere to and hoping that they affect the outcome of the game in a positive way. What I've been talking about in some of my most recent vlogs is the grind of cancer treatment. Even when you're healthy, like I have very few side effects from treatment. It seems like I'm going to get out of this year with no evidence of disease and then move on into monitoring and or maintenance of some sort after this. But it is still really, really uncertain, really scary. I mean, you're playing a game with super high stakes and cancer only has to win once. Like I said, I kind of hate these analogies that cheapen it, but we're going to keep running with it. If we're going to keep running with this comparison, though, I think it's fair to say that melanoma and I are like bitter rivals who have fought many battle-tested playoff series over the last 7 years. I seem to be having the upper hand right now, but like I said, this is just one of those things that I have to keep my foot on the gas. I cannot slip up. I cannot blow this leap. And if you're new to having cancer, it's a weird expression, if you've just been diagnosed with cancer or you're a little sensitive about the terminology of cancer, I completely get it. Because 7 years ago, if you had someone talking to me about comparing cancer to an NBA basketball playoff series or sports or anything, like I said, I don't like the fighting terminology for a reason. I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? This is my life. This is cancer. This is as serious as it gets. I think at this point in time for myself, I'm just in this world and humor is my coping mechanism. And I've gotten to the point where I'm comfortable enough publicly saying, look, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with this because I'll lose my sanity otherwise. So as I'm using sports as a comparison, I think there are some real things we can glean from it. I just don't want anyone who's out here watching to be like, man, this guy does not give a fuck about my emotions. Please don't take it as that. So I'm going to work to find some marriage between the levity and the seriousness of cancer, and this analogy provides me a little bit of that. I've played competitive sports and games my entire life. I was a professional poker player. I played basketball and I ran at a very high level. Everything that I do is geared around competition. And it's very strange to find myself in a situation where I do truly feel like I'm fighting myself. I am competing against myself at times, and I have to view it like that. Otherwise, my frame of mind will deteriorate in times like this when I feel good and it seems like things are good, but I know that I have to keep my foot on the gas. I know that I have to take this seriously because any slip up could be fatal or it could be seriously detrimental to my long-term health. And in sports, acting like you've been there before is really important, and also understanding the gravity of a moment is very important. And this quarter of cancer treatment represents both of those ideas in my case. I mentioned earlier that I've been diagnosed 3 times in 7 years, meaning I've done treatment 3 times in 7 years. Those are playoff series or whatever. And the risk that I just mentioned in terms of taking my foot off the gas is both physical and mental. So my first 2 cancer treatments were IV immunotherapy done every 2 weeks. They kicked my ass in terms of physical side effects. I had to stop both of them from outsized autoimmune side effects. I got gastritis and colitis and hepatitis, and they said, hey, your body can't take any of this. And luckily, my cancer appeared to be gone at those times, but unluckily, it did return. This year, I've been doing oral PD-1 blockers. I've just been taking pills every day, and the physical side effects have been pretty chill. And so because of that, I have to make sure that I am staying consistent with all of my exercise and diet and sleep and keeping my mental health intact without the constant like stressor of, oh shit, I have to go to an infusion. I have to recover from an infusion. I have to make sure that I'm not, inflicting any more pain than I'm already in. And that's a great problem to have, but it's still a very real problem because if I am to believe any of the science around cancer and how cancer occurs, there are things I can do from a diet and an exercise and especially a sleep and a stress standpoint to make sure that it doesn't come back. And whether or not I have any control over whether my disease recurs or not, I do have control about the life I return to or the life I continue to live as a cancer patient who is in remission or in active treatment. Because 7 years into this, I do kind of think that there's a good chance it'll end up being chronic. I know that people who care about me are going to be like, no, don't say that. It'll never come back. But like, until it doesn't come back, I'm going to keep maintaining that there's a high chance. So I'm going to live my life like I have to be vigilant all the time. And part of doing that is really the mental health side for me because my first cancer diagnosis destroyed me mentally. Like it cost me my identity for a while. It cost me a lot of money. It cost me a relationship. It cost me friends. It cost me so many things that maybe they were controllable, but maybe it just had to be enough time and enough playoff series and enough battles fought with myself and, the cancer sphere or whatever the fuck this analogy is for me to say, okay, I've been here. I don't need to let myself crumble mentally. I don't need to become a nihilist, which is really easy to do if you're in active cancer treatment or you've just recovered. And if you don't know what a nihilist is, go watch The Big Lebowski. But it really does become easy to say, hey man, none of this matters. Or hey, how am I supposed to get myself excited for anything in the real world or get depressed about anything? I mean, that's the good part. It's hard to get sad or upset when you compare everything with cancer trauma, but I don't think that's a good way to live life. I don't think you want to repress the poles of your human emotions or really the middle of it either, because when you start doing that, nothing feels good. Nothing feels exciting. You don't set goals. You don't love the same way. You don't hurt the same way. You don't process things the same way. And it leads to a very, very mopey existence. I've done this a lot. And I vowed this year to not have it be the same way. And, my first diagnosis was obviously very shocking to me. I was 30. I never had any inkling that I had cancer. I was then in remission for 5 years. And so the second one was also a little bit of a shell shock. And I was in remission for 15 months after that. But it was fresh enough that when this one happened, I said, look, I'm going to lay down these ground rules and I'm going to try and stick to them in terms of how I approach this diagnosis, whether the outcome is good or bad, how I approach treatment, whether it's going well or otherwise, and how I hopefully get to approach life if and when I get into remission again. And believe me, it is so fortunate for me that treatment has gone well this year. This year has been a much, much better one than I anticipated. And the trap that I could fall into is throwing those rules to the side and not being as vigilant and saying, look at me, I am just decimating cancer. I'm about to be up 3-0 in all these series. And that's not the approach that I want to take. And it's hard for me to do that. I'm sitting here talking to a camera and I get to think about what I'm going to say and I get to curate this a little bit. But the reality is that every day I have these stressful thoughts that are about what happens if, or what am I doing with my life that isn't cancer? And every night I have the same kind of thoughts where it's like, well, what if none of this matters? What if I just, drink and smoke and eat terribly and whatever I could do that I'm not doing right now, that I wouldn't feel inhibited from, and so I could just be wild. And maybe this is a form of ridiculous cancer patient privilege that I didn't know existed because my body is capable of doing a lot of these things, where I think that I owe it to myself and maybe some other people in my life to not test those theories, to not push myself, because I do believe in the science. I do believe that stress is bad for you. I do believe there are a lot of things that cause your body to be stressed. And also, I think I've had good success in these cancer treatments because I keep my body in very good shape and I am able to take a beating. My body is resilient and I think my mind is also resilient. But if you start letting that go, if you start getting sloppy, if you start acting like you haven't been there, then you're going to lose these games. You're going to lose these little edges. And all of a sudden, if you lose the series to cancer, you don't get to try again. But one thing that sports and life, and especially cancer, has taught me is that you can't get too ahead of yourself and you have to work with what's in front of you. So right now, while my situation is very good, I still have an entire other quarter of cancer treatment to deal with. I still have one of the most aggressive forms of cancer. I am still a stage 4 cancer patient. So I don't want to be Tracy McGrady in this situation. I don't want to say it's nice to get out of the second round. I don't want to say it's nice to get out of this year of treatment fine. I hope to get out of this year of treatment okay. It projects pretty well. I probably am going to make the second round. But holy shit, this is the place where you take all of your years of experience and you say, this is it. This is the thing that I have to do. This is where someone who's watching who hasn't either seen my videos before or who is newer to having cancer, take this as seriously as possible. Beating cancer is more serious than sports. It's more serious than your job. Probably more serious than anything else you've had to deal with. And just because I've made it to 7 years of doing this and I feel comfortable making jokes about it doesn't mean that the underlying task at hand is not incredibly important, because you can't experience all the cool shit in life if you die. And I know that cancer patients don't really have all the control over that. Our cases are different, our bodies are different, treatment is different. A lot of it is luck. But if I've been given this much good luck, I plan to use it for good. I plan to enjoy myself, but I also need to keep myself in line to be able to do that. And so in order to close out this quarter or this last game of this series of being in cancer treatment this year, I'm going to stick to the plan. I'm going to keep getting sleep. I'm going to keep working out. I'm going to keep hyperhydrating. I'm going to keep trying to limit my stress. And I'm also going to enjoy the moments in life, like being NED for this third quarter in a row. Being NED for one day as a stage 4 metastatic melanoma patient is incredible. So I want to take the time to soak it in and, give praise where it's due. All glory to science. I want to thank my mom and my dad and Caitlin and Noah and all my friends. I want to thank my oncologist, Dr. DiCarlo. Shout out to you. You guys have all made it very, very possible for me to sit here and ramble and give shitty sports analogies about being a cancer patient. And if you or a loved one is going through it, please understand that I hope you can take something away from this. That's always the goal. It's not just about me and saying, hey man, I got through cancer. Like, the goal is to make these so that other people who see them know that there is possibility for patients who are in a really dire situation, even if we don't control all of it. It's just fun to be able to sit here and hope that, patients down the line have just as much or better success than I have. That's all I got for today. I will be talking with you guys soon again. Thanks so much for your time. Bye.